Hello and welcome to my view from the piano bench. Boy, the phone camera seems so much closer, but by design, maybe even more so than usual on Wednesday nights. But the point is that I can talk conversationally. Perhaps someday I'll get like real equipment here, but been operating on a small scale like this for all my life, actually. And this seems to be working out. So thank you for watching, and especially if you follow me regularly on Wednesday nights. Like I say, I move the phone camera closer. It's not an emphasis on playing, and I kind of feel like talking softly. It's relatively early in my day. I'll be completely upfront with that in a minute. On Thursday nights, my view for piano for my friends, and that's when I play a cocktail hour style piano. Except style, yes, I have my own. It's like classic jazz, and it's spontaneously ridiculous at times, as much as I can come up with, or as much as I can open the portal to allow to happen, which is kind of what I'm going to talk about today. Thank you to those of you who support and encourage me via the links you'll find on the support page of my website, and you'll see a link to that in the video description below. Thank you so much for those of you who do. That in effect sponsors these videos, and thank you for considering if you watch regularly. But in any case, of course, I'm glad you're here. So on Wednesday nights, I have a topic, sometimes a song title, sometimes a concept, a musical concept, sometimes an experience that I want to share from, and that seems to be more the case lately. But today it's going to go back a little bit toward the idea of a concept, maybe all the way. I'm not really sure what's going to come out of my mouth. It's just that this morning, taking a shower, anyway, yeah, full disclosure, not that that matters, right? But that's a time, though, it's appropriate to bring that up. That's a time when you can, and there's some scientific things I've read about this, where you can have inspiration, where you can escape the confines of your mind, right? And of course, for me, what I talk about all the time is what I do here at the piano, particularly in the morning. But in a very, very different way, and to a different effect, to some extent anyway. Things like taking a shower or walking in the woods or at the beach, or anything like that puts you in that more contemplative place. Actually, playing the piano is a very interesting, unique spot to go there, because it's a contemplative space and it's a very active space cerebrally in one way or another. Now, it may seem like I'm just randomly putting in qualifications for what I'm going to talk about, but this is actually setting it up very well, I think. And except I forgot where I was just going, which is actually perfect. But I said full disclosure. Well, my day sometimes starts, not always, it's inconsistent, but sometimes it'll start much later than normal people's days because it ends much later. And the one thing I always allow myself to do is get enough sleep, because I'm just not functional in a productive way. I can tell all kinds of stories about that, but I'm already off the mark here because I didn't give the title, which required a setup. So a thought came to me, because I've actually delayed recording this week because I have several topics proposed in my book, proposed to myself, to see what happens, and none of them were really gelling. And of course, I needed to do something, and sometimes, necessity, the mother of invention, kind of thing. But when you're right up against it is when you can sometimes see more clearly, or sometimes when you're right up against it is when you can see down the road more clearly. Think about that for a minute. Welcome to my inner world of paradoxes. But I was thinking about a rehearsal last night that I was involved with, and the people involved in the rehearsal, and the circumstance going on, and very evident there was the were the expressions from the heart of the people involved. And that led me to reflect on a very early CD, early, not in my life, but in terms of when I started putting out CD recordings, self-release, and these no longer exist. They're not digitized. So you can't hear it, and I'm not disappointed in that, honestly. But one of the early ones I did, the first one that was like of standards and jazz tunes and regular tunes, there were actually two recordings before that, one of hymns and another related to that. And then I went over to normal tunes, and the Irving Berlin tune Always was kind of the anchor of the project, but the title of the project was Playing by Heart, and then I put Always, Playing by Heart, Always. Inspired in part by a comment that somebody made, a friend made, that I have on my website, the testimonials page, is that says, when you listen to Joe, listen with your heart. And that idea of expressively, emotively, connectedly playing, although my understanding of that, or my ability to articulate that or connect with that in some kind of way of understanding how to navigate, has evolved all through the years. I've understood that about myself. And that phrase, playing by heart, actually can be honed in to a very specific application that I've been kind of wanting to talk about. And this is what, oh boy, talk about going all around the barn. This is what really dawned on me, when you get like the epiphany, when you're walking in the woods or taking a shower or whatever, right? And that is, there are three phrases: playing by ear, playing from memory, playing by heart. Now I think we can take playing from memory and stick it over here a little bit. But I don't know that anybody makes a distinction between the idea of playing by ear and playing by heart. I think it's a catch-all thing that really means more than anything, hey, you're not reading music. But then playing from memory, actually, I should bring that back, because when people see that I don't use music, they go through all kind of inner machinations about, well, and I mean that literally, because people have told me, like, they think about, how does this work and what does he do, and I just try to explain, hey, we're having this conversation, it's the same thing, it's just the human mode of expression and working it. But people get hung up with the idea that you have this music and other things that fall off the piano, and you learn the music, and then you memorize the music, and then you can play it by heart. But if you don't need the music, and then you somehow have this magical gift, and playing by ear, and it's all just something that means not reading music. But actually, all those three things are very, very specific. And especially the actually, my mind is developing this as I talk, which is what I hoped would happen or knew would happen, which is why I wanted to record this. And I should say, and I didn't complete this thought, oh my goodness, that I have very limited time before I have to go out, and not really time to do this unless I like sacrifice the better part of my opening the space here at the piano, which I'm very hesitant to do. But this is a good time to get this done. I have the inspiration. And hopefully everything will be all opened up by the time I get to the gig tonight. But it's like, let me record this now. I need to get this recorded. I have struggled figuring out what to talk about, and it is clear to me. It's also clear to me that had I played the piano for about 15 more minutes, I probably would talk a little better, or a little more concisely, so bear with me. Yeah, this is really drawing back the curtain stuff, but this is what this is for. To try to share something unique or something, I don't want to say provocative, but just something that might make you go, huh, boy, is he weird. I'll take it. I'll own it. And I will admit it, that little thing there was actually helpful. That expression is what opens up my space. Even that little thing right there. And was that playing by memory? Was that playing by ear? Was that playing by heart? So anyhow, we're gonna keep going, trying to capture this. And by the time I'm done, I hope I can still talk coherently or think coherently. So, playing by heart as opposed to playing by ear. What clicked in my head was that that's a really good juxtaposition of what I've been trying to say and articulate for a long time about when I am playing and I'm really opening up that space, or developing that space, or just in it, and I hear something, yeah, that's a cool thing, let's play it. And the default is, well, that's what you do, you play what you hear. And I've learned, no. Ignore it. Because if you can step back from your mind, then that deeper channel opens up. And then the mind is over here, and this is here, and you can look at your mind. And I've talked about that a lot. And there's been a couple of times. I won't do it now because I'm still not really together. But I've demonstrated for you that when I'm playing from that space, I can talk fluently, I can have a conversation. It doesn't have to be related to what I'm playing. If I'm thinking about what I'm playing, don't talk to me because I'm all absorbed here. And that is a kind of a test for me, a litmus test as to am I where I need to be. But I can tell if I'm where I need to be just internally anyway. But it's nice to have that validated. And people say, how do you play the piano and talk to somebody who comes over to you at the same time? And it's like, it's easy. I'm in this other space. That other space is what I would call playing by heart, as opposed to playing by ear. So playing by ear, and that's deceptive because it suggests or it requires that you have an ear to hear. And yeah, you do rely on what you hear when you play by heart. But I think you know what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to separate the mind and the heart. Or the quote that I always come back to from Keith Jarrett, slightly edited, says, "When I sit at the piano, my hand knows what to do. If I try to tell it what to do, I'm stopping it. Not only am I stopping it, I'm stopping it from doing something better than I can think of." It didn't dawn on me to specifically put this together, but when he talks about, if I tell it what to do from up here, what are you doing? You're telling it from the determinations you've made. The determination you made that, oh, I hear that and I want to put it there. Totally legit. And I would say for most musicians, that's the procedure. But there's this other path. The path that, I try to cultivate. And honestly, if I didn't have that part of me, I wouldn't be doing this, because I wouldn't really have the contributions to make at the level that they can be made when I am there. And this time later in my life, I much better understand that that's the part of me I've always believed in. Even if I could never find it on purpose way back when, but I knew that it was there. So then, playing by heart is being in that space that I always talk about, as opposed to playing by ear. Now, I've told you, recently that, in recent weeks, I'm trying something different in my practicing. And rather than take tunes, like in the jazz sense that, jazz tunes and you move them around keys, which never really clicked for me because it was never about jazz speak. It's like, take a Bach two-part intervention. And this has been a big project. Just to have that memorized, and we've talked about this before if you watch. The only reason I've got this memorized now is because every day, and I'm moving it in different keys, and I'm moving it around all 12 keys. And I'm moving it around 12 keys to develop my ear. So what I'm demonstrating is that I'm not saying you don't play by ear, you do. In fact, you develop that skill. And that's what I do with this. The place that sticks out in that particular phrase, and I have to play from the beginning. I can't jump in the middle of something, and I kind of, even though I play from the beginning, I try to. Now, everything has to be a complete picture, otherwise I don't see anything that makes sense. Right there. That little place that you just blow through, right? That is like the highlight, the big important, fireworks are happening here. That leading tone. We call this a leading tone. And actually another leading tone here. Yeah. And of course that's something I'm feeling, but it's also something I'm hearing. And moving that around the keys allows me to zero in on all those little places. Now that's just in the first phrase. Later on in that invention, there's lots more of that stuff that happens. And so when I move to another key, another key, I don't know. And I stopped and thought a little bit, because there's that same spot here in this particular key. But in this emphasis, I'm not emoting, I'm honing my ear. So that's playing by ear as opposed to playing by heart. In this definition parsing that I'm making internally for myself. I'm not saying that you like put this in the dictionary or that everybody agree on it. This is something that's making sense to me that I am sharing with you. So those two things, as opposed to playing from memory, which obviously is all thinking. And back before Chick Corea passed, and he was doing all his live streaming from home. It was amazing what he did. And I imagine that on his Facebook page, I haven't looked in a long time, since he passed, but on his Facebook page, all those live streams are probably still there. He did it every day, very sharing, very conversational, taking questions and having practice sessions in front of, live. And he addressed the question about memorization, and he said that when you memorize something, that's not the goal. The goal is to know it. And I'm going to put some words in his mouth because I don't know verbatim what he said, but the essence was that there's a place beyond memorization where you know something. And because when you play from memory, you're thinking, right? And you are finding, you're working out. When you know something, you're not, at least not in the same way. And he was expressing the same thing. And since memorization is so hard for me, because everything just morphs, I can't, even that, as thousands of times I've played this, but I still occasionally have to go back to make this check to make sure I didn't alter a half step somewhere, because I kind of just started feeling it differently. And, I don't have that ability, which is why I can't be a performing classical musician. So a little side trip of this is that this is also demonstrating the idea that when you play music or when you do whatever, you don't put yourself in some cookie cutter slot. You allow yourself to be entirely who you are. And then you take the process of what you do to match who you are. Now you really have to be kind of, far down the road to do that by yourself. And of course I've done this all my life, and I can figure that out. And what I kind of take some pride in is over the years of teaching, I don't do a lot now, but I do some, and I used to do a lot way back when. That was something that I always focused on with the student, that I could figure out for them. But nobody really thinks about that, but your process in human expression is uniquely yours. Now there are categories you can make, and playing by heart descriptions of procedures, playing by heart, playing by ear, playing by memory. I put those three out, and those are like templates or prototypes or whatever, and we can use that to get in. And then once you're in, I'm over here on this part of the spectrum. Yeah, right. Yeah, and but then it's what is it? How do I do it? Who am I? And of course I'm, one who is always self-reflective like that. And not everybody is. And not everybody is meant to be. And that includes musicians, or built to be, I should say. And I'm aware of this all the time. And so, you always want to point to what you feel the higher thing is. But when you're holding somebody's hand and you're helping them do something, you can't walk them away from themselves. Right? So if I'm talking, say, to a student who I know is much more feet on the ground, linear process oriented. It isn't going to entirely live here. I'm going to point to this. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to get them to say, huh. And at that point, they're going to contemplate it on their own. And that's what needs to happen. And then, but if I say, okay, this has to be your process. And, come here with me. And I'm yanking them, moving them somewhere they're not. I can't do that. So, we all have our place. And I hope this makes sense. And I'm pointing to the area where I had identified memory, ear, heart, just little spots in the piano. And I guess ear is kind of in between. Whew, so many places to go with this. Okay, so I think an anecdotal story here will be good. It'll kind of ground this and keep me from going into esoteric, wonderland, hyperspace mode drive area. So a few months ago, Sharon Sable and I, pursuing our Blossom Deary project now that the recording is released, one of many paths that each of us are traveling in our everything, but it's one that we obviously are doing together. So when we work that path, we do it at the same time, obviously, performances or otherwise, or planning or rehearsing or whatever. So a few months ago we had a show in Annapolis. It's part of Elena Bird's long-running jazz series, and a musician, a fine pianist from the greater Baltimore area, Bob Diener, was extremely encouraging and helpful. He's aware of this project. He's very much behind it, and he actually subbed out his gig. He came to support us. He organized people, and Sharon and I decided that we want to go down to his gig, not just to return the favor, or to acknowledge that, with no other motive. They're not entirely not just a political thing, but we, in terms of the rapport, the relationship, we wanted to develop that. We wanted to go hear him play, and he has heard me play a lot more than I've heard him play, right? And actually, I first met him probably about 10 years ago at the True Blue Jazz Festival when we were doing the Rehoboth Bandstand on Saturday afternoon. And he'd be down there working with somebody else, actually Holly Lane. He goes down there and does shows with Holly. And he just started talking to me. I hear people compliment me and I take it to heart and I'm grateful. But he was zeroing in. And actually, at first, how do I put this? I didn't know what to do with it. Let's put it like that. So I think I came off a little bit flighty, not flighty, but or not dismissive, but just a little detached from it. But then I went to hear him at the gig with Holly, and the stuff he had to say to me, it's dude, well, let me jump ahead a little bit. We both can be really self-deprecating, right? And we both can be really hard on ourselves. But here's the point I'm getting to. We both can also make our way to that playing by heart space in that unique way that honestly a lot of people don't do, because they develop their playing by ear space. which is tremendous because that's who they are. But there's this little like window or door in some people, and in all of us really, but to be able to access it in a pursuit purposely, not everybody is drawn to do that or pulls that off, but Bob gets it, and I've really understanding how much Bob gets it, and that's what he sees in me. And to get a little ahead of myself, because I'm having trouble telling this story entirely in a straight line, I knew this already, but when I heard him play last weekend, when Sharon and I went down here and we both happened to be off, we plotted this, like, when can we both have it off the same night? And it was wonderful. We're both so glad we went. But yes, that is Bob, because I heard that happen. It's like, whoa. So Bob is responsible for having a lot of musicians work consistently. He oversees music at the Stanford Grill and related chain locations. I don't entirely understand it, different names and different locations and stuff, but right now there are 3 restaurants, and eventually there will be more. And most of the nights of the week, if not all of the nights of the week, they have jazz trios, and it's part of their atmosphere, their ambiance, and it's their brand, and that's the Tuesday night gig every week I do with Scott and Amy, and he was able to bring me in when that expanded to 6 nights, because the other nights were all taken, and it's entirely his vision, and also to have that kind of vision is related to this, that big picture, that moving into seeing broadly and not being just stuck here, right? So, was it last year or was it 2 years ago? No, it was last year at the True Blue Jazz Festival. Holly Lane had had an accident walking her dog. She broke her wrist. She fractured her rib. She couldn't sing, which is really kind of tragic. The week of the jazz festival, Bob Diener came down anyway and played solo at the restaurant where they work. They still wanted him to come, so he was down, and we had a gig that was supposed to be Holly Lane and Shore Jazz, but Sharon subbed because Holly Lane couldn't do it. And Bob was finished his gigs, and he came over to listen. And he laid the most sincere compliment on me, that could possibly be. Very specific, very thoughtful. Sharon was standing there. She said to me later, I wondered if, when he started talking, if I should walk away. But then I said, no, I'm here, and I'm going to be a witness to this, right? And it's really cool to have somebody to talk to about it. And Bob had talked to me for a long time about trying to have me sub at Stanford Grill and and all that. And there were logistical concerns, and I live far away, and a sub thing, I may or may not be available or be able to call him back right away. So that was hanging out there for years. But at that point, everything just sort of really focused and energized between Bob and I. And that was the moment where I realized everything he says I need to own. Up until that point, I didn't. Because part of me was saying, these are really nice words. With the tacit thing about, you don't know how sincere somebody is. Not that he doesn't come across as sincere, but it's like, oh, wait a minute, Joe. Listen to him. listen to him. And he would always talk to me about how self-deprecating I am. Well, when one finger's pointing out, the rest of the fingers are pointing back, right? And so when Sharon and I went down there, and we were, by the way, if you live anywhere near or can be near Columbia, Maryland, it's like if there's no traffic, I have to go during rush hours, so traffic. It's a solid hour and a half from me on the Eastern Shore. It's not very far south of Baltimore, though, if you're over there. 7 nights a week. My night, every once in a while, I won't be there, not often. And then occasionally Scott and Amy won't be there, and there'll be a sub in. If you're coming for me, look at my website, and if that Tuesday's on my schedule, I will be there. You can always email me and check. But anyway, we were able to get the very best 2-seater, for Sharon to be able to watch, and of course, I'm there all the time watching, so I was taking it in from the eyes of the back of my head, and the first thing that Sharon said was, "He's a great." After halfway through the first one, he's a great player. Why is he so self-deprecating? But she didn't phrase it like that, but that's what it meant. It's like he's not giving himself credit, But here's where I have to say this just right. Even though she said that, I heard, because this was laser focused now. This is what and Bob and I have talked about this. We're both seeing exactly the same landscape, right? I knew that this wasn't entirely open. And he was, I just gotten there. He was aware of that. He wanted to play well, and that would be on my mind too. And as soon as you want something, no, it comes to you when everything's empty, when your basket is empty, right? But that doesn't mean you can't play well. But it isn't this. And he was over here. And I knew it. But would I still say he's a great player? Yes. But even though I really hadn't heard him entirely open up, I knew it was coming because I recognized what was happening. And then later in that set, and then a couple of other times in the night, there were some tunes. It really happened in ballads, and that's how it works with me. Some places that really, really stood out. Where the door just wide open. Yeah, I talked to Bob about it. It's like, I don't know what happened, or did that just? He didn't say that because he and I. That this thing exists is not a mystery to either of us, right? But it's like, yeah, okay. And it's like, it was really great for me to be able to hear Bob, to be able to be there for 3 hours, to be able to hang for an hour afterward. I don't do a lot of that. I typically don't go out by myself. So that particular circumstance where I could go with Sharon, which was unique and not a typical thing, allowed that to happen. And also, I just have so much to do. Yeah, it's a crazy juggling act, but that's a topic for another time. But that is playing by heart. Playing by heart, moving away from the determinations of playing by ear. And is playing by heart only an extension of playing by ear? I would say no. And I'm thinking this through as I'm talking. And now we go to playing by memory, or from memory. So Playing by ear can become playing by heart. Playing from memory can become playing by heart. And this is something that you've heard me say if you watch these videos, that the classical pianists that I really want to hear are the ones who can, and I would describe it by other means, but now I can just say with this, symbolism, this illustration, that the classical pianists I want to hear are the ones who take what they have memorized and then express it from over here. And that is their unique gift. If I take something I've memorized and I totally express it from over here, I won't play the same notes that I memorized, even if it is memorized. So I can't do that. But there are certain pianists that I hear. I need to learn how to pronounce Kathy. I don't even have a clue. A long last name that begins with B. First, Keat and a Kathy, but spelled differently. And she's probably 30 something, maybe late 30s, I don't know. But in that current crop of classical pianists, Lang Lang, Yu Jia Wang, her, and others, but Lang Lang and her are like the two for me that really, like, what they have memorized. Like, if you watch her play, and you watch her play something slow and expressive, she's got the chop, she's got the technique. Yu Jia Wang, it's a different animal, and she's just like the monster chops. But this one over here, oh my goodness. When you can see it in the facial expression when the eyes close, and it's not something they do, it's a response to what they're doing. So this can happen over here. The story I always tell is that years ago I was driving somewhere and I had the classical music station on in the car, and I heard this piano expressed so wonderfully, and the way I would have described it at the time, and still could, is that it was being played as if it was intuitively played, like it was coming to them, like the goal is on my side of the street, right? And I hoped that the announcer would give the name after the piece, and they did, and it was Lang Lang, and I hadn't heard of Lang Lang, and I looked him up, and I refer all often to something he said that I read in an interview. He's advises students, don't just play the note, feel the note, and make every new piece your best friend. So he's talking about moving from here to here. Now, does the idea of playing by heart, how do I put it? I can't figure out how to put it. People in the audience with different sort of temperaments of their own will respond more to some approaches than to others. And if I take the playing by memory and playing by ear, and I add something to it, which is like virtuoso playing, just like monster child, really like great playing, which I don't have. Okay, tell me I do, and I'll stare at you. I can get around, but I mean, there's all sort of like technical things. I have a wall that I hit, and I stay on the side of it when I perform, not when I practice, though. But that technical prowess, apart from the expression that happens over here, possibly, is what grabs a lot of people. It's the big ta-da, the big, oh, wow, there it is, right? I don't have that. and it takes me like I can't impress an audience in the first 30 seconds necessarily. But if I have a group of people who are like, somewhat paying attention, listening thoughtfully or whatever, give me 3 tunes, I'll have them. And it's different. These combinations of things produce different results, and the audience out there has those same ingredients in their personality that are happening to absorb this. But what I'm after is this. I'm not after, somebody saying, wow. Usual one. I'm probably not pronouncing her name right. That's a wow. Art Tatum, which is a mixed bag with this. But let's just say, for this illustration, that's a wow. It's a total wow. But then there's that line that, forget his name, the opera singer would say, and other musicians have said this, that when people go home from a concert and they reflect on it, they don't remember what I sang for them. They remember how it made them feel. That's where we are. Or my phrase, take a lasso, throw it around the room, and connect everybody in one space. That's the idea of playing by heart. And thankfully, I think my brain space opened up a little bit while I was talking. And why do I always go back to Amos Behaven? I have no idea. I think this is a good time to say thank you for being here. And I'm a few minutes short. Forgive me. But I think I communicated what I wanted to say. And now I have like an extra 5 minutes to find the right pair of socks to get out on time to play my gig. So, thank you so much for being supportive and for being here. It's a cool little community of encouragement that you provide for me, and hopefully, that connection goes both ways in terms of being beneficial. And a shout out to Bob Diener. Yeah. I don't usually talk about people by name like that, do I? Unless it's people I'm working with. And I've never done a gig with Bob Diener and probably never will. Because how often do you play with another piano player? But anyway, thanks so much. Hope to see you soon. Tomorrow for Piano for My Friends. I got to get on that. Ooh.